The ending is absolutely mental. I was on the edge of my seat. It was very tense, but not necessarily because it was so tense, but just because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I just had the time of my life. You know, when you forget that you're in a cinema, or you forget that, you have to go out and you have to do adult things, like get on a bus to go home and pay your rent and whatever. I forgot about all of that. Shall we talk about Weapons? Weapons is Zach Cregger's follow-up to his 2022 horror film Barbarian. Now, I want to preface this by saying this is a spoiler-free review, at least as spoiler-free as it can be, because everything after the first 5 minutes of that film is basically spoilers. So I'll do my best. It's absolutely best to go into this film knowing nothing about it. I think I watched the first trailer and after that, nothing. And you want to sit there in the cinema and just take it all in. Just let it wash over you, go with the flow, because that is an incredible experience. Let's just put it that way. I was floored. Let's just start what it's about. So, in a small town of Maybrook, one night at 2:17 a.m, 17 kids got out of their bed and just ran off into the night. No clue where they've gone. They've just disappeared. You know, people have got those like Ring door cameras and security cameras. You can just see all these kids running with their arms up or on their sides. And it's just one class of kids, one teacher's class. And only one kid shows up to school the next day. One kid. And that's it. That's all you want to know going into the film. Now, if you've seen Barbarian, you know that whatever you expect from a Zach Cregger film, he will serve you something completely different, something far weirder and more interesting that you could ever expect. And that's definitely true with Weapons. It's incredibly ambitious because the whole film, which runs about 2 hours, it's multiple different points of view, and it's basically the same story, but from different perspectives. It's a really bold kind of take on a horror film. We'll come back to whether it's a horror film or not in a minute. Just having these multiple perspectives, and with every perspective or every kind of chapter, you get a little bit more information about what's going on. And still, the tiny little hints. And for about 80% of the film, I had no idea what was going on. And that whole sense of being completely clueless is so exciting, especially when it is a horror film. Because a lot of the times, horror films especially, they follow this neat 3-act structure, and you can kind of always see where they're going with it. Even if you can't necessarily guess who the killer is, if it's like a masked killer, you can still see where they're going. You're going to have, usually you have that screen kind of start where somebody dies and you introduce the killer, and then you introduce your characters, something happens, you get the middle bit where they're just investigating, more people die, and then you'll get the climax. Here, there is no structure to it. Cregger has great control over the structure, but anything that you might be expecting, it's not going to go with those usual rules of cinema. And that's what really, I think, makes this film so exciting. Now, it's a very disturbing film. There's some great imagery there, a decent amount of gore, a lot of it. So if you're a bit squeamish, don't skip this, but just go into it kind of knowing. Don't eat anything that you wouldn't want to come up. Visually, the whole film kind of straddles this beautiful balance of being very haunting and just beautiful. And then it merges them together into something weird and wonderful. And I'm a big fan of gore. I love a bit of blood and guts, and I felt very satisfied by the film. Again, much like Barbarian, it's not afraid to get weird and extreme at times, but it also doesn't go overboard with it. It gives you little bits of it here and there. And Cregger has this ultimate control over what we see and how much we know at all points. And I've been calling it a horror film this whole time. But it's also a very dark, a very black comedy. Now, that might put some people off because you get a lot of horror comedies and they tend to be very silly. And that's not at all Weapons. When you go to a horror film screening, like a packed screening, there's usually quite a lot of laughter. Either, things might get really ridiculous and people are just laughing at what's happening. Or if there's a lot of jump scares, what you usually get is people will jump, some will scream, and after that you get like, oh, people either laugh because, they're trying to kind of make themselves feel better, oh, okay, it's fine, we're safe. Nothing is going to jump out at us, at least, you hope. Or they might be laughing at themselves because they can't believe they just jumped because of a movie. Here, it's very intentional at what point you should be laughing. A lot of the times, there are a lot of jump scares and a lot of the laughs might come after a scare like that. But there are really great bits here that are genuinely funny. And it never takes away from the horror of it all and the extremity of it all, which again is really difficult to do. And I was really impressed how I could jump at one moment and then laugh out loud the other, because it is sort of laugh out loud kind of laughs as well, rather than just like, that's funny. And it's a great kind of up and down. I always think that film should be kind of like a heartbeat on like a heart monitor that you see in a real hospital, or in my case, Grey's Anatomy or whatever. You should have like a nice steady beat, and then all of a sudden you have the heartbeat. And that's exactly how any film should be, but particularly a horror film. You should have that lull where you're kind of like, oh, everything is fine, and you're into the film. And then all of a sudden something jumps. Not even a jump scare, but something just that makes your heart go, because that's what we want from horror films, don't we? We want to be scared. We want to, even if we don't necessarily want to be, jumping up and down because of loads of jump scares, which are an art form in themselves. They are hard to do. A really good jump scare is difficult to manage. And I think here, a lot of the jump scares are quite predictable. I felt like I could tell when they're coming. I don't think that's necessarily bad because it's still very effective thanks to the imagery that's used here. It is disturbing, and it didn't keep me up at night, probably because I watch a lot of horror films. I love horror films. But instead, I was almost too excited to sleep because I kept thinking about the film. I had loads of thoughts going on in my head. What does it all mean? Oh my God, this was so good. This scene really got me. And I think that's always a really good sign. Not just a horror film, but any film. That's what we want. Something that gets us thinking, something that gets us excited. And you don't always get that. I think that's getting rare these days because we have so many films. We're constantly watching things. We've got these streaming services that have films and TV shows literally right there for us to watch at any moment. Sure, physical media is still hopefully going strong. I know I'm definitely contributing to it. But films like this, you don't get them as often anymore. As much as I really liked Superman and Fantastic Four, I don't really think about them that much. Unless I'm sort of actually talking about them, if it comes up in conversation. But I don't think I'm the one bringing those up, at the moment at least. Or Freakier Friday, I saw that last week. And the review is now up on filmstories.co.uk as well as on this YouTube channel. But I'm not really thinking about it. It's a good film, but whereas with Weapons, I think I'll be thinking about this for a very long time. It's got a great cast, like I said, great scares, really intriguing mystery. which again, you don't want to know anything about when you go into it. The biggest issue here, though, is that when you craft a mystery this tight, this intriguing, and one that you're not really giving anything away about to your audience for most of the film, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. And I don't think the ending here, the resolution is really good. It's so much fun. But whatever it was going to be, I think you would have kind of gone, oh, okay, yeah, oh, okay, cool, I see that. There is no way to kind of resolve something like this with something that's going to be as mind-blowing as everything that came before it. The ending is absolutely mental. I was on the edge of my seat, it was very tense, but not necessarily because it was so tense, but just because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I just had the time of my life. You know, when you forget that you're in a cinema, or you forget that, you have to go out and you have to do adult things, like get on a bus to go home and pay your rent and whatever. I forgot about all of that. That's the biggest compliment I can probably give the film. It runs for about 2 hours, like I said. It doesn't feel too long, thankfully. It's got loads of the perspectives are kind of like their own chapters. They don't feel too long. They don't drag. Something's constantly happening to keep you kind of engaged and entertained. So none of it feels too long. It kind of finds that really good pace of never dragging. You're never bored and you never want to go to the toilet, because you fear that you're going to miss something. And again, terrible if you've got a small bladder, but great if you're really looking for a film that will engulf you. So if it's not clear by this point, I loved it. I can't wait to watch it again because I'm sure you're going to get so much more out of it on a second watch. So yeah, I would be surprised if this doesn't end up in the top 5 of the year for me personally. Weapons is in cinemas on the 8th of August, and we'd love to know what you thought. So please leave your comments down below, or please let us know if you're really, really excited for it as well and why you're excited. Did you love Barbarian? Did the trailers just get you really excited? Let us know. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.